Some of you may have seen my recent video on the Marshall Valvestate model 8100.
This one, it's right over here.
These can fetch a pretty high resale price, mostly due to their history and the fact that they were used by 𝗦𝗔𝗔𝗡𝗦 of death, which makes them collector's items of sorts. Over the years, Marshall has released other models of Valvestate amps with updates and supposed improvements, but according to the internet dweebs who like to gatekeep these older amplifiers, the 8100's tone is significantly superior. So the reasonable thing for us to do here is to plug in these amps, compare them, and then at the end of the video, shoot them out in a chug battle.
Well, after your request to see comparisons between different valve states, which, by the way, thank you so much. I appreciate all of your comments. They really help me in deciding what content to make next. So if you have something that you want to see, or you just want to say hi, leave it down there. So anyways, what was I saying? Oh, right. So after reading your comments, I went on a hunt and I found a VS100, which was released after the OG 8100 that I reviewed previously. And I decided since it was something you guys really wanted to see, I would go ahead and purchase it so that we could put it in a chug battle against the OG 8100. So let's plug in these bad boys, feed them some chug-a-lugs, and see if the internet dorks are right. That I have, and I'm assuming all of the people that requested this video, is it worth that much more money, or are these amps pretty comparable, sharing the name Valvestate? I don't know the answer to that question, but we're gonna do our best to find out. And real quick, I just want to throw this in there because this is one of the most common questions that I get in my videos when I use this guitar. This is a Grimoire by Deviant Guitars. If you're interested, I will leave a link in the description below, but that's what I am playing today. So we're gonna start here with the VS100, and we'll focus mostly on this one. I did a video on the 8100 recently. I will link that in the description and maybe on one of those little card things that pops up here. But we're gonna start with the VS100, and then we'll go into the 8100 just for some recap, some reference on this one before we go into the mix at the end. So we're plugged in, we're on the clean channel here. Now the difference between the clean channel on the VS100 versus the 8100, on the clean channel on the VS100, we do not have a crunch knob. So this is a 3-channel amplifier. You have your clean channel, Overdrive 1 and Overdrive 2, whereas on the 8100 you have a clean channel with a crunch mode and an Overdrive channel with Overdrive 1 and an Overdrive 2. So I feel like you have a little bit more versatility on the 8100, but I do like the layout of the VS100 a little bit more. We'll go into that here in a second. This is the clean channel. Let's dial it a little bit. I know I make a lot of jokes about the clean channel being the boomer channel on amplifiers, but all jokes aside, this amp has one of the most pristine, clean tones I've ever heard. And another difference between these two amplifiers is on the VS100, we are actually using the tube in the preamp section, whereas the clean channel on the 8100 is completely solid state. But yeah, I think this clean tone is really, really nice. We can even dial some of that bass out of there. Okay, now one of my favorite tones from the 8100 was actually the crunch setting on the clean channel. We don't have that here. We do have a tone shift, which is going to take out some of the low end. Sounds a little bit more full. It has a little bit more body without that engaged, so I don't really like that, to be honest with you. But you know, it's there. If you want to cut some of the body out of your tone, you can do that. Let's go to Overdrive 1 here. And you can see I have the gain really low. Overdrive 1 and 2 share the same EQ section, except on Overdrive 2, we have that famous contour knob from the 8100 that seemed to make it such a popular amplifier. So since we don't have that on Overdrive 1 here, what I'm trying to do is actually ride the gain pretty low and recreate the crunch setting from the 8100. It's not exactly the same. Here, let's dial this a little bit. I'm gonna dial back that high end a little bit. So it's not exactly the same. We could sort of get it into that range, but I don't know. I just really prefer the crunch setting from the 8100 as opposed to Overdrive 1 on this. I don't think it has quite the same versatility. It's got a lot of top end. It's very like glassy sounding, I guess I would say. Which is cool if you like that sort of sound. We actually have this power dimension switch, and I think that is going to add in some low end here. Let's see what that sounds like. I think I actually prefer that with less gain. Yeah, there you go. You know, adding that power dimension on Overdrive 1 gets us closer to the range that I really like on the crunch setting over here on the 8100 model. But let's turn that off and let's just go straight into Overdrive 2. And I have this setup very similar to how I have the 8100 setup in the last video. Let's just dive in with it right away. It's definitely similar to the 8100. I don't feel like it has as much gain. Yeah, we have the gain pushed all the way too. I feel like it's a little bit less gain than the 8100, but we will recap this amplifier here. Maybe that's just bad memory on my part. Wouldn't be the first time, but it does seem to have a little bit less gain. It seems to be a little bit darker too. Let's just turn this contour knob at noon and kind of take that out of the equation. For those of you who didn't see the last video or aren't familiar with these amplifiers, the way the contour knob works is if you turn it clockwise here, you end up scooping your mids. And if you turn it counterclockwise, you end up cutting off some of the top end. It acts as sort of like a low pass. So let's just put that at noon there and see what that sounds like. Yeah, it's a little bit weird in the mid-range to me. Yeah, you know, it doesn't sound like it has the same amount of high end to me. Let's see if we can sort of, I don't know, maybe dial it a little bit differently. See what that does. That sounds a little bit more similar to the 8100 to me. Yeah, it still just sounds like it doesn't have quite the same amount of gain the 8100 does, but let's hit this power dimension switch before we go over to the 8100 and see what that does to the tone. I feel like the power dimension switch is really just like a bass boost, and probably what that's trying to do is simulate like the warmth of tubes, but it really just sounds like a bass boost to me. And it's a little bit too much. Like, Marshall amplifiers aren't known for having a tremendous amount of low end, and just in my experience with the ones I've played, the low end is usually a little bit like wompy. I don't know what it is with us guitar players and our vocabulary that we use to describe tones, but yeah, the low end is just a little like flubby sounding, to me at least, with the Marshalls that I am familiar with, which isn't a lot of them, but anyways. I'm actually really interested to plug back into the 8100 now and see if my memory's serving me correctly, or maybe these amps pretty much sound the same. Regardless on whether they're different or how much different they actually are, I'm actually having a really good time playing through the VS100, and I can tell you I like the layout of the front panel a little bit more. I like the extra options that you have, even though I might not necessarily use those options, but I do like that the effects loop is on the back. Maybe you don't. Maybe you like the effects loop on the front of the amplifier like it is in the 8100, but I prefer it on the back. I just think it looks a little bit cleaner. There you go. There are my thoughts on the front panel, if you were wondering. Okay, we're plugged into the 8100. Just to recap real quick, this is the clean tone. And the boomer channel on the 8100, like I mentioned before, is solid state. It doesn't sound as pristine to me, and you have this thing with the gain, where like when you turn the gain up, not only are you increasing the gain, but you're increasing the volume as well. Like, that's fucking loud, holy shit. So there's that, it's quite a bit different to dial in. But let's go to the crunch mode though, because this is my favorite thing about the clean channel on the 8100. And you gotta remember, the clean channel on this amplifier is entirely solid state, so I think it's a really, really great tone for a solid state amplifier. But let's move over to the overdrive channel on this amp, which does use a tube in the preamp section. We're just gonna go straight into the high gain. The settings are pretty much the same as they were on the VS100, so let's just see how much of a difference there is. They sound like they're kind of in the same ballpark. As a matter of fact, if you told me the differences between the overdrive channels on these two amplifiers could be summed down to just component tolerances and maybe different preamp tubes, I'd believe you. So take from that what you will. See how sensitive that contour knob is on the 8100. I feel like the contour knob on the VS100 is not nearly as sensitive. You know, just that little nudge there really just kicked out that high end that was a little bit shrill on this amplifier. It might have got bumped the last time I moved it, but that's about where I like it. So what do you guys think? Does the 8100 command nearly double the used price of the VS100? My thoughts on this is sort of. I can completely understand the collectability factor of this amp, and if you're the type of person who likes to hoard rare gear, then this probably makes sense for you, as the higher price reflects, at least in part, its rareness and collectability.
However, if you were just looking for that Marshall Valvestate tone for a deal, then the VS100 is probably going to work fine for you. Like I mentioned in the demo, I think there are differences for sure between the amps, but a lot of what I'm hearing could in fact just be chalked up to component differences or even just the preamp tube.
Also, when I purchased my 8100, I bought it from someone who restores amps, so I knew it had been recapped. With the VS100, I don't really know what the condition of the electrolytics in the amplifier are, and that's an important consideration, seeing as how these amps are like 20 to 30 years old. And although I didn't see or hear any indication that there were any issues with the VS100, it is something that I wanted to mention just because it's an unknown variable if we want to be truly objective.
But all that aside, I still stand by my previous statements, and I think that if you wanted that 90s death metal sound, the VS100 is going to get you there, and usually for a lot less money. Just make sure that when you are purchasing these older amps, you factor in the potential maintenance when the inevitable day comes that they need a service and a full recap.
If you liked this video, let me know by hitting the like button and leaving me a comment below if you really like what I do and want to help me fund these weird, nostalgic gear purchases. There are all sorts of ways that you can help out in the description or by using the new thanks button. And until next time, be safe, stay metal, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.